Hello, everyone. I hope everybody can see my screen now. Maybe somebody could say yes in the chat, then I'd be happy about that.
Looks
Perfect.
good to me. Yes, people can see it. Great.
Nice. Yeah, hi, everyone. My name is Christian. Um, I'm a translator for games, basically, and I've been translating games since around 2017. If I'm sometimes looking up in the left corner, it's because that's where I have my little Discord window. So then I'm actually looking at all of you guys. Yeah, I've been working on about 150 games by now, and together with Elena, my colleague, I'd like to tell you a bit more today about um, why to localize your game, or maybe also why not, um, how to do it, and probably also how not to do it. But yeah, maybe Elena, you can also say a few words about yourself.
I'm Elena, and I'm a video and board game translator and tester. I've started working in this industry in 2009, so I've completely lost count of how many games I've worked on. Together with Christian, we live in the Netherlands, and we started bringing this talk around about a year ago, I think. First time at the University of Breda, which has a very similar setup that you guys have in Kajaani. There's a University of Applied Sciences. They have a game development course, and from this, they created an incubator with a lot of studios of indies. They also get some financing from the government and other instances, and they've asked us to give us a talk. We gave a talk at the university and at the incubator, and it went very well. So we started checking if there was somebody else around that wanted to hear a bit more about localization. And I don't know. We hope you're gonna like it. It's the first time we do it remotely, so it's very strange for us. We cannot see you. We usually try to have some sort of interaction with our audience. So please interact with us through the chat if you can. Sometimes we have questions for you, or we ask you stuff about the games you played. We would really appreciate it if you could interact with us, so we don't feel like we are talking to the void.
Or just to
We're
each
gonna
other.
do our best, yeah, or just to each other. Thank you.
Yes.
Um,
Maybe just a short overview of some of the games we've worked on. So I think both of us have worked on anything from mm, a few
Triple
hundred
A's.
words, yeah,
Oh yeah.
to triple A basically. So all kind of complexities. um, yeah, I actually don't remember who started with the next slide.
Uh, I don't see the next slide. Actually,
Oh,
this is
sorry,
also
sorry.
show me the next slide.
Oh, that went way too far, and the slide is
Yeah,
not
I guess
showing at
we
all.
start by
Oh,
telling
there
you
we go.
what
There we
localization.
go.
Well, first of all, maybe just for because Jonas told me that some of you don't really have much knowledge about localization. Localization is simply like a sort of translation on steroids, where we translate your game and we prepare it for a specific market. In my case, I'm an Italian translator, so I work on games for the Italian market, and Christian is a German translator, so he
Yes.
specifically works for games to be ready to be sold on the German market. So there's apart from translation, there's all a part of adaptation that the game is going to need, and we're going to see this further on. But first of all, um, just to start, we think that there are three ingredients to make a game successful. First of all, you need a good game. Um, yeah, that's sort of the base. And then someone needs to find your game and talk about it so that it spreads around and it starts being successful. And third, you need a little bit of luck sometimes. It's a sort of ingredient that you always need. And localization comes in play, in our opinion, in the first two ingredients, because a good localization helps to make a good game, and also localization opens up whole new markets and allows you to reach a lot more people that are going to talk about it with a lot more people, and so on and so on. And then we get to the question, oh, well, what is localization? Okay, I sort of told you already. So
You kind
adapting
of
your
did.
game for a specific market, from simple things like local standards like time, format, date format, the currency, to more serious things like legal requirements, and to a very important part, um, which is the adaptation of the content to, um, well, for example, making sure that your game doesn't contain anything that is offensive for another culture, which would totally fail your game on another country. And also, like, for example, sense of humor or other things can be perceived very differently from country to country. So if you have a game that is full of humor and puns, these really need to be adapted because they might not work at all in another culture. So we also take care of all of these things through localization. It's not just a simple translation. Now, this is a question for you. I hope you can try to guess in the chat. Do you know? We just want to start with the highest example of localization. Can you guess, or do you know? Yes. Well done, Marcus. It's Minecraft. Um, Minecraft has been translated in 119 languages. It's probably, yeah, it's the most translated game ever. And it has brought the game to reach a level of expansion, going to series, movies, books, Minecraft education. Like, there's all sorts of things that have spawned from Minecraft. And it includes, well, so I'm going to give you the first example of localization here, because when we bring this presentation around in the Netherlands, usually this is the moment where our audience laughs, because between the fantasy languages, we also put Brabants. We tell them that Brabants could be also put between the fantasy languages because it's a Dutch dialect that very few people speak.
A
But in
very
this
funny one.
case, because, yeah, very funny, I'm going to localize it for you. It would make more sense to tell you that it includes Sami, for example. It's obviously a minority language, and it's really cool that the game is translated into Sami, because it's also difficult probably for Sami speakers to access to a lot of entertainment products in their language. So this is cool. And between the cool application that Minecraft managed to have, there's, for example, a company that I don't know if you know, in Oulu, a school of gaming. They, for example, have these courses which are mainly aiming at Finnish children that live abroad, and they can play Minecraft together in Finnish on a Finnish server, and they can only talk in Finnish to each other. And they do these courses on Saturday, and they play together for like 1 hour and a half, and it's a fantastic way for them to keep close to their mother tongue when living abroad. Um, and also, please do not think that Minecraft is only, like, you might think, okay, well, of course, Minecraft is translated in so many languages because it's aiming at children, but it's not true, because when it came out, originally it was meant for 12 plus. So it was not meant specifically as a game for children, but probably the amount of localization made it so that now this is the major player base of this game. But this is just because we wanted to start with the main thing, but we want to focus on indies, of course. So we're moving to Tactical Breach Wizards, which is our first sort of case study. I don't know if any of you have played this game. It's an indie game which has had a lot of success, and we bring it as a first example, which might seem strange because it's a successful indie game which chose not to localize at all. It's only available in English. Sorry, I want to just make it bigger for me, otherwise I cannot read. So it's published in August 2024. It's only available in English. And interesting thing is, when we started bringing this talk around in November last year, it had sold 100,000 copies, and now they've tripled this number. And yeah, and this company has chosen specifically not to have localization. So you might think, okay, well, why should we localize then? But we would like to have a look with you more specifically at the data on Steam. If you analyze the data on Steam, they are really selling a lot in the main English-speaking countries. We also put next to it the total addressable market, which is basically the market, the full market you could reach. Germany has a reachable market of $10.67 billion, and it's our biggest European market. France is also a huge market, and as you can see, for example, is selling just as much as the Netherlands, which is infinitely smaller, because the Netherlands has English basically as a second language, while in France, without localization, you don't go anywhere. And the Asia market is completely untouched here. So yes, it's a successful game, even if they don't have localization. It's a choice. It's fine, but be aware, this is what you're going to have. Like, basically, you're going to sell in the English-speaking countries and very little in the rest. You're going to not reach the Asian market. We would like to show you, if you have any questions or you would like to intervene with something relevant, don't hesitate to write in the chat. We might reply it right away, or we can do it at the end of a presentation. And also, little disclaimer, this data we are showing to you now, as you can see here below, there is a fantastic newsletter that you might know. It's called Game Discover. They have different features every week. This kind of data about localization and Steam sales is very difficult for us to have. And they had once this feature about localization where they analyze a lot of data, which has helped a lot with this presentation. And for example, they also analyzed the case of Thronefall, which is another indie game which has had a lot of success and has chosen a completely different approach to localization. So from Grizzly Games, this is a tower defense game. I don't know if any of you have played it. Please let us know. Came out about a year before Tactical Breach Wizards, and they have localized into 14 languages, and they are adding still languages little by little, and they've sold more than 1 million copies. And if you look at the Steam sales, it's completely different. China is now the highest selling market. United States is the second, and look at Germany, doing really well up there. The numbers are now, in a way, much more proportional, probably, to at least to the size of some markets. Yeah, it reflects completely different sales now, and especially about the Asian market, especially about China, which is a huge player in the market. And the team themselves, they were interviewed about localization, and they themselves said, we were quoted, they were surprised by the number in China, and they even had, to their words, not even a great simplified Chinese localization, and still they were blown away by the results. So we just wanted to present you these two different examples of different choices indie games made. It reflects really differently on Steam. We can go on to the next. We want to sum up now the reasons why we think you should localize. First of all, you are working on a game. You are starting this uphill road of game development as an indie studio, probably because you think you have a really good story and a really good story to tell. So it's really nice if other people can hear your story. So this is the first reason, like not economical reason, but really a reason of the heart. Tell your story, reach the audience you're intending to reach. There's maybe people in Korea that would really like to hear your story, and you cannot reach them if your game is not in Korean. And finally, it's also a question of accessibility. Maybe you have reached them, they have found your game on Steam, but their English is just not good enough, and they're like, oh, damn, I would really like to try this game. Or your game maybe is suitable for children, which are not fluent enough in English to play it, or elderly people, potentially. Why cut them out? There's some that might really like to try your game as well.
Yeah, I have just to quickly give an anecdote. I have a colleague whose 7-year-old father is playing Elden Ring, and they have constant conversations about that, and that would not be possible at all if there was no localization for Elden Ring. And he seems to really enjoy it. He has like 200 hours by now in it. So.
Getting back to Steam, to what we were saying before, we just wanted to show you the breakdown of languages. Again, to reinforce the fact that Chinese is really fundamental, is the main, the primary language literally on Steam, the main language. Steam supports 29 languages, and you might know in the Steam options, you can set a language, some languages as preferred languages, and you might even tell Steam that you only want to see games who are translated into that language. You might hide games that are not translated into your preferred language. And the algorithm is probably going to show you if you have a preferred, like if I set Italian as a preferred language, I'm going to be shown in the main page mainly the games that are in Italian. So it's also really a question of discoverability, even just translating only the Steam page. It's really a sort of shopping window that allows you to reach much more people, especially depending on literally the languages that they have set in their Steam options. So do not underestimate the power of localization for your discoverability on Steam.
Exactly. Just two tiny caveats for this overview. On Steam they do not distinguish between Castilian Spanish, so more like European Spanish, and Latam Spanish. Latin American Spanish speakers definitely do prefer a Latin American Spanish version if it's available. And I mean the numbers vary a lot, but you also got to keep in mind the different buying powers of the different countries. So I mean, it looks like there's only 2.5% of people that have German as their main language, but they also tend to be heavy spenders.
Like we saw in the Thronefall data.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Germany was much higher than other countries. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that will choose English as their primary language that are not necessarily native speakers. So basically, that English number is artificially inflated as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is just a little tip that we would like to give you. We know that the main issue about localization for indie devs, when we talk to them at conferences and events, mostly they're like, yes, we would really like to localize, and the issue is always the same: it's money. Like, we're on a tight budget. We don't know. We will see. It depends. We need to choose. You have to make a selection. So how do you decide what to localize? First of all, if you're really tight on budget, translate at least the marketing text, like the Steam page. This can cost you probably, Steam page is usually 200 to 300 words, more or less. It's probably going to cost you like, I don't know, 30 euros per language. It depends on the language. Obviously, some languages are more expensive than others, but really, it's around 30 euros. It's nothing if you think of it. You can translate about 10 languages for around 300 euros or something, and it makes a big difference already. So tight on money, start at least on that. Second element, if you have a little bit more money and you have a demo for your game, usually a demo is like 1 or 2 levels. Again, it's probably a really small fraction of the text. Marketing text together with demo are a huge marketing tool on Steam to get discovered, to get wish lists, to understand in which countries could your game work better. It's a really good combination if at the moment you feel you don't have enough money to localize the full game. And finally, of course, the third option is the full game, which is always the best. In the last two presentations, we've gotten the same question about this slide, which was, will not the players feel cheated if we translate the marketing text and maybe the demo in, let's say, Italian, and then the game doesn't come out in Italian? No, because you can always see on the right side of the page in which languages the full game is available, first of all. Secondly, very good idea might be in the marketing text to write, you can always write notes from the developers to write, for example, we are planning to expand our localization to other languages in the future. Let us know in which languages you would like to see the game translated. So if you're open about it, absolutely, they will not feel cheated. They will appreciate that at least they can try the demo, for example, and they will know that maybe in the future, or maybe they will be even more encouraged to wishlist and comment, hoping that then you will pick up and in the future translate the game in their language. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and
Then,
now I'm passing the word to Chris for the technical part about the lock process.
well, technical. I'll just try to give a short overview of what we hear a lot from devs and how our perception slightly differs from it. So I don't know how many people here have already once been through the process of trying to localize their game before and how many haven't done it. But I think if you start into it unprepared, I think everybody's going to realize that there can be a lot of problems and a lot of things that if you take care of them early on, it will make the entire process much, much easier. Yeah, so I got this overview of the development process from GameMaker.io, where there was like a very, very big overview of what the normal development process looks like. And normally when we ask devs when they start thinking about localization, it's somewhere around there. And also on this entire page, the word localization is actually mentioned nowhere in the entire development process, which I think shows very well that a lot of times it's unfortunately a bit of an afterthought. Whereas I think ideally you're thinking about it at every step of the way. And the main big question you should ask yourself, because it's the biggest investment in time overall for your development process, is do you want to localize or not? It is, like we said, not necessary for success to localize your game. But if you want to do it, you need to think about it from the beginning. And it's definitely it's a potentially profit enabling step. It's not generating profit by itself, but it's opening your game up to a much bigger market. So at the beginning stage, you just need to ask yourself the question: do we want to maybe at some point ever localize the game? If yes, what markets are we going to aim at? Is it just more the European market? Normally you go by like specific language families. So EFIGs, English, French, Italian, German, and Spanish would be the European market. CJK, so simplified or traditional Chinese, Japanese, Korean would be the Asian market. And then you can have additional ones like Polish, Latam Spanish, Finnish, Brazilian
English, yes.
Portuguese. Yeah. In the pre-production phase, whatever engine you're going to use, you need to check whether it's lock ready. There's a lot of different kind of plugins you can use to export all the texts that need to be localized and re-import them. Some are better than others. If you're unsure, ask somebody that has done localization already, or ask us. um, because some will export everything without any kind of context, which will be problematic for us. When you're working on your UI and on your writing in general, keep localization in mind. One of probably the biggest problems, and we'll get on to that back a little bit later in the presentation. English is a language that most devs write their game in English and then have it translated into most other languages. And English is a very sparse language. It manages to convey a lot of information at the expense of grammar. That means almost every other language will be at least 10 to 15 to 20% longer. And you need to keep that in mind when you're designing any kind of UI, especially when you try to go into German or French. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem.
in
Um,
Finnish.
yeah, I could see that as well. During the testing phase, you should also test your localization. You need to check whether everything has been localized, whether everything is being shown the right way, whether everything is understandable and makes sense. And yeah, like we said before, in the pre-launch phase, or probably already early on in the production phase, you wanted to think about the localization of the marketing materials and the demo. And then after launch, there will always be some kind of log bug. Like there will always be bugs. And there will never be a launch of the game that is completely free of bugs. And then just treat localization bugs like mistranslations or missing text or something like that as normal bugs and just work through them as well, like you would work through all the other ones. If you don't think of these things, there are a lot of things that will go wrong. One of the most common things we've seen is that if you work on your game in English and you go at it with a programmer mentality, a lot of people would love to just reuse strings so that you don't have to write every text 5 times. And then we'll concatenate strings at runtime, like verb plus number plus noun, like pay X coins, which will cause problems in other languages because the word order of these kind of constituents will change. Like, for example, in German, the number would have to go first. Similar problem with gender of characters. A lot of times we see it that there's the game state doesn't take into account whether some kind of NPC is male or female or whatever. Let's say you have a thief in your party, and from the game state you can only see that the thief is at half health or something, and then your output in English will be like your thief is at half health. In German, you will always need information about the actual gender of the character. You can go for generic masculine, but it's gonna sound weird in certain contexts. So it's always better to have that kind of information in the game state. Like we said earlier with UI, and probably a similar problem in Finnish, but there will be words that are incredibly long. You need to kind of take care of them somehow. Our biggest problem is mainly that very often texts get exported from the actual engine and then sent to us, and we get to work on it without actually getting to have a look at the rest of the game, which is, well, partially inherently problematic because games are inherently multimedial. It's kind of weird that we actually take all the text out and then don't get to see the visuals that go with it. And also, computer games are dependent on how a player plays them. They're not in a fixed order, but you will always have like dialogue trees and stuff like that. So ideally, we would want to have an overview of the entire dialogue tree when we work on the individual lines, be it via a Miro board or something else. But we need to see how the entire conversation, like all possible permutations, basically, of the entire conversation, so we can make sure that everything fits at every single time. And like I said earlier, English is very good at conveying things in very sparse terms, but that leads to a lot of ambiguity. And if you're trying to reuse strings, then you will run into problems because open can both be a state of an item, or like let's say a chest or something like that, but it can also be the verb in itself. And I think as Finnish natives, you probably know the problems with that. But very often it's easy to forget that you would need different forms for that. Yeah, but that's why we're here to help you a bit and give you a few tips of what to keep in mind when you're working on localization. And
Yeah, I mean, of course, all of this can sound a bit overwhelming, like, oh, all these things to remember, but actually, you don't have to remember all of these. You just need to ask professionals that are going to take care of localization for you and that are going to advise you on the things they need to know. It's, as long as you involve us early and not at the end when it's very difficult to fix stuff, then you don't need to know anything. We will just guide you through whatever you need.
yeah, that's basically what we're bringing to the table. Not only finding the right words for something, but knowing all the little problems behind not finding the right word. Yeah, we gave like a little, we put together like a little mnemonic for that. So the 4 C's of localization, and Elena is going to talk about them a bit more in 1 second, but I'll give you an overview. One is basically a culture check for the appropriateness of certain topics for a certain culture. So basically ask your translators, is the kind of topic we're talking about here, is all of that appropriate, or do we need to change certain small things for a different market? Coding, make sure that nothing is hard coded, make sure that your entire code is localization ready. Context, provide us with as much context as possible. You know your game very, very well. We've never seen it before. And so we need to be brought up to speed as quickly as possible. So we can give you a turnaround time that is as short as possible as well. And that we can only do if we get to know as much as possible about your game. And communication, we will have questions. There's no way around that. And we need somebody to answer those questions. And the best way is always to have somebody in your team that is basically dedicated, a dedicated person for the entire localization process that then can relay the questions we have to the appropriate people or answer them directly if possible. Yeah.
We're going to go now through a series of examples and we're going to give you some tips and tricks about the main issues that might come up with localization. We made this slide, which refers to, elements that might be sensitive or offensive in some markets. It's referring to Italy because we don't have many things that are considered offensive, but two things you really need to be careful with in Italy are religion and mafia. The way if you have a game where there's some mafia gangs or something, you really need to be careful on the way they are portrayed, or it could be considered offensive. I asked my Finnish husband what did he think would be considered offensive or could be considered offensive for a Finnish person in a video game, and the only thing he could come up with is if Sweden wins against us in ice hockey. So if you have a better one, a more serious one, I would like to hear from you on the chat. But otherwise, there are obviously, but usually religion. Religion is usually one of the sensitive topics, or I don't know, like this is also like you cannot know, like if your game comes out in Thailand, how are you supposed to know? You don't. Your linguists will tell you if there's something that it's not okay. But if they find out only once the game is basically ready to ship, that's a problem. So again, as early as possible, involve us so we can tell you if there's something that needs to be changed before it can go on that market. We can go to the next. Well, this is quite basic. We have special characters. You have many in Finnish, the the all your stuff with dots. If you don't have enough fonts, like you might have, like think of the Danish with their weird like cut in the middle. Like make sure you have fonts for everybody, and that everything is displaying nicely, especially also for Asian languages. This is just really
Yeah, and you will find there's basically example character sets that you can find online that you can use to test whether the font you want to use works in your game. Basically, just a set of all the characters for different language families. It's the easiest way to do that. Sorry.
Yeah, it's just here we get back to what Chris was saying, like a few hard code stuff and the gender thing. It's again, Finnish translator are blessed because you only have the hand thing and you don't put gender on anything, which is really nice. Unfortunately, in Italian, we decided to give a gender to everything from the table to the cup to like literally anything. This is the curse of the FIGS languages, French, Italian, German, Spanish. We are all doomed with that thing of wanting to give a gender to anything. Um, so please think about us when you make your game. Like this, you died just doesn't work for us. And I've had situations where a client would come to me and say that they had this really cool modern game where they really want characters to be male, female, and also non-binary. So we really need to make sure that we treat this carefully and the right way. And then they give me stuff like you died like this. So let alone leave the non-binary. I can't even make this female technically. You are forcing me to have this everything in the masculine form. And it's not 2005 anymore. So please don't do that. We really need at least and again like, okay, how do we do this? We can help you choose the best solution. Sometimes you can duplicate strings. Sometimes you can have variables and tags. Like we can also work with you to find the most appropriate solution for your game. We can tell you which strings need, maybe it's just a small bunch of strings and you don't need to get all scared. Um, but yeah, just remember other languages need to have a male and female for a lot of things.
Oh,
This
just
is
one
also
last
quite
one small thing to that one as well. What other
please.
languages also love is a non-breaking space. So just like a little special character. French translators will be very, very happy if you check whether that works in your game or not, and German translators as well.
The first question in every query sheet is always from the French. Can we use a non-breakable space? Always. It's like it's basically a joke or a meme between translators by now. Baked in text, this is just of course if you have some graphic assets in your game which are really important for the players, like some indication on a sign or whatever, like it might be important that they can read it. Like maybe there's instructions on where they have to go for the next quest or whatever. Um, just think about it, of course. Uh, this also ties back to what we were saying, and as the Finns will understand this very well. Some languages are much longer. English is always very short. Make sure you have space, or you like your font can shrink, or you have dynamic text boxes. These kind of things. These are
Because
all.
if you don't, you might end up with something
Yeah.
like this. This is an original example. On the left is from the release version of Elder Scrolls Oblivion in Germany. I do think that's part of also a bit of a miscommunication between the translators and the devs, but you obviously don't want something like that in your game with 8,000 abbreviations. On the right side, you see the version that the slightly later version that was updated, where people can actually read what kind of items they have in the inventory, which is very, very helpful when you want to play a game to know what kind of items you have. Yeah.
Yeah. This is, I don't know, for us, it's very obvious, but somehow maybe it's difficult for you to imagine it. But sometimes I even happen to receive like dialogues for a game in alphabetical order. It's obviously impossible for me to then put back together in my head where the dialogue is starting and where it's going. So we really need um, a logical order and also small things like you have weapons. Maybe you have all the names of the weapons at some point in the file, and then way below, you have all the descriptions separated from its own name. It's much easier if I have the name of the sword with its description, and I don't have to scroll back and forth to go look. Okay, which sword was that now? It's like as much as things are together uh, and logically put together, the easier it's going to be for us to work on it, and the less we're going to have to ask questions. Um, Anything else?
This is the
Yeah,
number one
this
tip.
is
The more
what.
context you give us, the less questions we will ask. I think context questions are the number one kind of questions you will get from us otherwise. What does this mean? What does this refer to? Right? Or do you have a different experience?
Yeah, I even have now working on a game where we have a really long list of objects, and there's no context or anything at all. So yeah, like you have bat. It could be literally the animal or the baseball bat. You have this this kind of things, and then every single string is a question. uh and then the answer is just very easy. It's like, oh, okay, it's an animal. I don't know, it just really time consuming for you maybe. And if this would have been just put there before, like, this is a lot of questions that just you won't get, and you won't have to go look for an answer.
The easiest way to make sure of that is basically checking that you have informative string IDs, so that the ID of the word bat doesn't only say bat, but for example, it says weapon underscore bat. Then we know it's probably not the animal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If we are definitely of the opinion, we hear a lot of times also from developers that they do translation and proofreading, but then opt out of LQA, and I find that difficult for multiple reasons. But well, first of all, if you keep all of these things in mind that we just said, the linguistic analysis, linguistic quality checks are going to be much easier and going to be done very quickly normally. But in
And
my
it costs
mind,
less.
and it costs less,
And it
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, in my mind, having your game translated without doing LQA is like cooking without tasting and then serving it. You don't know. It could be good, but it's better to check. um, Especially because some things can always go wrong when you import stuff back into your game, or there might be some unforeseen tagging errors or whatever. There will be always something. There's never been, I think, a project with LQA where we haven't found any problem, and some of them can be very minor and not really inconvenience players at all. Um, and some of them can be pretty bad and might have just not been obvious while translating the game. So, in my opinion, LQA is not a step you should well ignore. Yeah, and let the LQA people know how you would like to receive the text changes, whether you would like to mark them in an Excel file or something like that. Provide us with cheat codes or dev tools so we can, let's say there's 11 million different scenes. I don't want to play 40 hours of the game if I don't have to. I could probably look at all these scenes much more quickly if I can trigger all of them sequentially. So tools like that are very valuable for us. And do at least one regression round. So basically, after implementing the changes that we send you, have us check one last time, even if it's just 20 minutes, whether everything has been implemented correctly. Then you'll definitely have the most polished version of the localization that you could think of, in my opinion. Yeah, as the last part, another question we get a lot is basically, okay, I would like to localize my game, but how do I do that? Who do I actually contact about that? And I think there's three main ways you could do it, and all of them have advantages and disadvantages. One is what we hear very often also is a publisher will take care of it. Um, and yes, a lot of publishers basically have working relationships with different agencies or different freelancers. That also differs a bit between the different publishers. And that's definitely a valid way to go. But then I would say at least try to figure out who they are working with. Ask them what kind of agencies they work with, and check whether those agencies have kind of a good standing within the community. Because for me, there's nothing sadder to hear than having somebody tell me about their beautiful narrative game and how cool it is, and then telling me they don't know who's working on the localization. And that happens more than once. The one advantage of just having a publisher do is obviously it's the most hands-off approach. Even though a good publisher will probably tell you almost exactly the same things that we told you now, and will give you a big overview of all the things they need from you and how to do versioning and stuff like that. But it also means you have the least direct control over the end result. You can go directly with an agency. There you have bigger, what are called LSPs or language service providers. And you have smaller boutique agencies. Normally, the smaller ones, you will get the names of the translators directly, and very often you will also have direct communication with them. With the bigger LSPs, that's not always the case. They will very often work with the people, whoever is available at the moment, whereas the boutique agencies work with people that they've been working with for a long time and that they know and trust. We might be a bit biased that way. Personally, I, as a translator from the other side, I prefer working with boutique agencies. Yeah, and then the most control you probably have if you work directly with either individual translators or there's also collectives, basically. So let's say a group of translators that has worked a lot with each other. Let's say for Italian translators, like in Elena's case, or German translators, where we know we have a similar style. We know what to look for in each other's work, and we have a lot of experience working with each other, which also cuts down on the work time, basically. Another note is basically money is always important, and we know that. But when you compare agencies by price, also compare exactly what they're offering, because sometimes prices can be much, much lower because they say, well, we'll just do translation and not translation and proofreading. In my mind, 4 eyes always see more than 2. I know a handful of colleagues of mine where I know that I would only need to check like 3 or 4 punctuation things, maybe on like an entire game. But that will not always be the case. And my proofreading is also a super essential step. Yeah, so it's agencies that offer translation only, in my opinion, are too risky to work with. Yeah.
So yeah,
I
just
think
to be
that's
clear on the last one, I don't know if it was clear. So usually the standard procedure would be you have a person translating,
yes,
and after there's a second step, someone is proofreading the entire translation and checking if, and also what is really good, it's usually also during the translation step, you are constantly in contact with the proofreader and already discussing things like how should we translate this, how would you translate that, and then the proofreader is going all over and proofreading what you've done, um, because we are humans and you can always make mistakes, you can always miss things, um, especially if it's a very long text. After a while
yes,
you might get tired, so it's very good. It's translation only, it's risky. The best is
it's,
always to have 2 steps.
yes, and especially applies to games with a lot of text where you might also have like a somewhat shorter turnaround time, where you would then work with multiple translators. There, it's super important to have like one proofreader who's basically the last instance to check every kind of text and make sure that style-wise they're similar. There's the same terms are used consistently, especially when it comes to like terms for different mechanics in the game. You want them to be all the same so that players will easily understand um, what works how. Um, because frustration is one of the probably leading causes for people not playing a game any longer. And a good localization helps minimize frustration. Yeah, I think that's it from our side for that. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. And otherwise, thank you very much for inviting us and letting us give this tiny talk.